So I've created this model here. I have my unwrap done. We will be revisiting this because we're going to start adding topology. So this is sometimes where you can use your textures as a reference point to add more detail. So this is just a flat box right now. What I can do is I can start using start doing some modeling on this. So I'm just gonna turn my settings for the UV and UV editor off for now, and I'm gonna look at this by just maybe use my insert edge loop, my split insert edge ring tool. So that is based in mesh tools. So I'm just gonna open that up and go to my insert edge loop tool. If I select on this edge, I can roughly place this in the right place. So you can see that there's an edge going from this side to that side, and I'll do the same on around here, and I'll do the same around here, so you can get a better idea of that. Now this of course will work better. We'll have to do a bit more editing to get this side right. Might want to do one around here and this as well. So what I'll do is I'll firstly do these two faces. So I've got these top and bottom face. I might want to extrude, and what I'll do is I'll scale this. No, actually I'll just press W, actually I'll press R, and I'll scale this inwards. So this kind of gives me a reference point to draw that. But you can see that my model from here is stretched. It's quite dark, you can't tell, but you can see these lines. There's no texture there, they're stretching, which we'll have to fix, and we'll have to go back to fix that. So you can see with that I can add more detail, but it's not perfect. I'll have to fix that. I can unwrap this and do the same with that. So if I just go and select these faces and hit extrude and go inwards in terms of thickness, let's just go 0. Let's go minus 0.67. Oh, that goes too much. 1 second. Let's just do that again. So let's extrude. Let's hit minus 0.1. So we've got this model here, and we also want to extrude this out. Actually, it's probably not the best way to just do it with that face. What we'll do is we'll just move this a little bit in, and we'll do this once at a time rather than doing it in one go, just so we can get a bit more control on what we're doing, rather than it'll become a bit more messy and we can modify it later on. I'll select this face and I'll hit extrude again, and I'll move that bit back so I can see what I'm doing there. Now once I've done that, you can see that I would like probably to select this face and bring it back out again, because I want to have that kind of detail in there. I can draw that detail onto the actual model. So for instance, if I was to select this edge here, it's not perfect, the alignment on this, so I'm just gonna try to do it as straight as I can. Actually, go and do that. I'll go back into my UVs and readjust some of this, because you'll see that this is not perfectly lined up, and that's why I'm getting a bit of problem here. So if I turn that on, and you see that there's this bleed that I was getting. Now in order to fix that, what I can do is I'll first detach this and make this a separate island. So if I just select that, go to my polygons and hit on create UV shell. Now this is a separate piece, I can move that around. What I can also do is select just these UVs. So if you right click, I can select all this. So I'm just gonna create a little triangle. I'm just gonna use this, draw out this little box to select these UVs so I can move them. You have to be careful. Sometimes what I'll do is it'll also select this edge here. So maybe instead of selecting the UVs, what I'll double click on this edge and select on this edge and then click on this edge. So you have to be careful because you're selecting that, so I can move this one back a bit. And then I have this other edge here which I can also align and move back. Now just say if one edge was further, and this is just, I'm giving an example, and you wanted to merge them together spot on so they're aligned perfectly, you can actually select these UVs and then hit on this object here, and what that'll do is that'll snap it back and align it perfectly. Now you can see that this kind of goes into that corner a bit more clear, and I can just use this polygon cut tool from here. I'm going to draw a line to this, and then I'm going to draw another line to this bit here. Probably would have been better to kind of do that a bit more clearly. Draw a line from this point to here, and just open that. You might want to also get this line from this point to roughly here, so we can, when we extrude that edge out, you can get a bit more detail on that. So we're only going to do one face for now, give us an idea. So we've got that. What we can do is we can delete this face, and I can select this and I can extrude it out. This is just a rough example of how you can actually use the texturing to actually help you get more detailed models. So if I'm just going to hit merge now, so just go back into my settings here, edit mesh, and I'm just going to merge these bits together. So let me just open that up, hit merge on that, also merge on this. So I'm using the texture as an example to then go around and texture that. Now you can see clearly now that there's problems with the grain here because there's stretching taking place. There's no place for this model here. So we want to texture that, and that's the same with this bit here. What we can do is we can actually use some of the unwrapping tools to do the same with that. So what I would have to do is select these faces. If I select them, select all these faces on these edges, do the same on this side, same on this side, same on them, and while I'm at it, might as well just do these because it's not going to take me that long. So if I double click on that, I should select all of them around, and I'll do the same at the bottom as well, just because we've got these edges that are stretching and they're all going to be like that. And the reason why they're stretching is because they're all merged at the same point, because that detail was never painted. But what we can do is we can use the detail on this model or anywhere on this texture space to kind of add that detail into this model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit I'm going to create its own islands. So go to polygon and create UV shells, hit W, and I'm just going to move all these points across. So you can see that it's separated all these faces, but they're still unwrapped in the same way. We don't want it to be like that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit all these faces, click on them, select them, and then let's try automatic mapping again and let's see what we get. So if I go on to my UVs and hit automatic, so you can see that these faces, if I just move them across back here, now they're all nice and straight, and they are also in that spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale these down to roughly the length of these bits here, so I can see so how they would appear on the actual model. So try to get them roughly the same length as your length as your box, so the height of that. And what you can then do is just position these in different places of your model. So if I then now move this to the side, and if I just start selecting this for instance, this face belongs to that. If I select this face, let's select this face and move it just here, you can see the grain now of this face. It looks much more nicer and it looks much more closer to what it's supposed to be. In these cases, I don't mind writing these in the same position roughly. It doesn't make a massive difference if you're doing that or not. If you want to, if you really want to, you can even have a straight line for that bit there. Just be careful with the grain itself. Sometimes if it goes in the wrong direction, a lot of the times students work results in grain going in the wrong direction, and it's noticeable from a mile. So I'm just gonna roughly position these just so I can see how it looks like in a moment. So I'm just going to position these here, and I can see there's screws and bits there which are not going to look right for a second, but I'm just kind of doing this as an example, just to give you an example what else you can do when you're texturing. And of course you have to clean your model up if you do this method. Just that when you start seeing the model come alive and you start seeing all these textures being applied, then you get a better understanding of like, okay, this lacks detail, I need to add a bit more detail here. So I'm just positioning these in different parts of the texture space where I can see where the UVs are, and they can be in the same spot if you wanted to, but I'll just put them just to break it up to make it look a bit different. Now if I look at this model, it's the same crate. You can see there's wood grain there. The only thing that I would say is probably it's a bit too deep there. I could probably move this one a bit up again. Parts of it that you can see. I have to now go and clean this texture up. So if I was to do the same for this side of the model, like for instance if I was to have this model unwrapped the same way, so if it was extruded, I can do. So instead of doing it the way that I just did, what I can do is then draw this line across to this point here, and then draw this line out to that point. I would have to go and clean this model up later on. This will kind of give us that quad, but instead of doing it that way, I've created this try here, and I'm just going to extrude backwards on this, and as you can see it's gone much more rougher than before I've done it. And what I will do is I'll carry on tidying this up until I have a nicer looking shape of the crate. Of course, the purpose of this tutorial is to understand UV unwrapping, but you can see from this example that how things are positioned. So the next tutorial gets a bit more complicated when we get into the organic unwrapping, and also when you do a unwrap of the house.